All right, today we are doing 6-7, inverses of functions. Today's date is today. Our objective is to find the inverse of a function if the inverse exists. Well, I'm sure right about now you're asking yourself, gosh, what is an inverse? Well, one undoes what the others did. These examples up here are equations that you've seen before, converting Celsius into Fahrenheit, converting Fahrenheit into Celsius. Those are examples of inverses. One undoes what the other did. And if you want to get into the math speak of it, they are inverses. If you were to do the composite, you're going to get x, and you'd have to plug one equation into the other, and vice versa. So if you were to do that, you would get x for both of them. So if you're given an ordered pair and asked to find the inverse, that's actually a very easy thing to do. All you're going to do is switch your x's and your y's. So instead of an ordered pair of 0, -1, it's going to be -1, 0. That one's going to stay the same of 1, 1 because they're both the same. 3, 2, and 5, 3. Let's do the same thing. 2, -3, 2, -2, 2, -1, and 2, 0. Well, this is an example where you've got an inverse, but it wouldn't be a function because the x values have more than one y value. If you were to graph this, you would end up with a vertical, or 4 vertical dots, which would not pass the vertical line test. That would not be a function. A lot of times, you're going to get an equation, and you're going to be asked to find the inverse. It's really not very difficult to do if you follow the steps. First step, switch your x's and your y's. Second step, solve for y. So I want to get it so it's y equals. So in this case, I multiply both sides by 2. And I'd get 2x equals y. And I want to show that it's an inverse, so I use inverse notation, which is just that little 1. And it looks like I end up with a line, which is a function. Let's do another example. First step, switch my x's and my y's. Next step, I want to solve for y. So I'm going to add 4 to both sides. Then divide by 3. And I get y equals x plus 4 over 3. And I want to show that it's an inverse, so I'm going to put that -1 up there, that superscript. You could leave it like this. The way I would prefer to write it, though, because I know it's a line, and I want to write it in y equals mx plus b form, just because I like that a little bit better. Either way, though, is fine. And I have a line, so yes, it is a function. Let's do a couple more. On this one, f of x. Remember, that's just a fancy way of saying y. So I'm going to switch my x's and my y's. Well, this one's really easy to do. Just subtract 1 from both sides. And this way, I want to, since they gave it to me in function notation, I want to give my answer back in function notation. And I just put my superscript of -1 with the f. Again, I've got a line, so it is a function. Switch my x's and my y's. I'm going to solve for y now. X minus 10, subtract 10 from both sides. Then we're going to divide by that -3. And I want to show that it's an inverse, so I'm going to use that inverse notation. I could leave it like that as a fraction, but again, I'm going to separate it out. I'm going to have x divided by -3, which is just -1/3 x. And -10 divided by -3 is going to give me a positive. Again, I end up with a line, so it is a function. All right, on this one, I've got let h of x equals 4x minus 3, sketch h of x, and the inverse, and find a rule. When they say find a rule, that means find an equation. And I'm actually going to do that first. So switch my x's and my y's. Let's try and write that a little bit better. I'm going to add 3 to both sides. Divide by 4. Then my rule would just be the inverse of h of x equals 1/4 x plus 3/4. Well, let's go ahead and graph that. Let's go ahead and graph our original first. My y-intercept, let's do the original in red. My y-intercept there is -3. I put a dot at -3. My slope is 4, or 4/1, so my rise is 4, my run is 1. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's go ahead and draw a line through those points. All right, so that right there is my h of x. Let's go ahead and do this one. 3/4 is my y-intercept. I'm going to have to kind of guesstimate where that is. It's going to be slightly under 1. And my slope is 1/4, so up 1 unit, right 4. Let's go ahead and draw our line. If you've done everything correctly when you sketch them, they're going to be reflections over each other, over the line y equals x. So if I were to magically fold my paper over that dotted line, those two lines would land on each other. Which these do look like they would be reflections over the line y equals x. All right, I hope you enjoyed.